So I'm going to break it into two, because do you believe you can have equity or even equality in capitalism? And how
Um,
much would you implement it into the society and also the market, which can change at any second?
if it's you mean if it's like a total capitalistic thing where they're not there aren't any social programs. I'm assuming he's saying like I don't think that's
Yeah, I
possible.
think there. Yeah, go ahead, because I
I don't
think
think
that's
that
where.
yeah, I don't think that's really possible because if you're all about making dollars, all you see is dollar signs with everything that you're doing, like all the decisions that you're making. You're not. There's no nothing like programs that would help the poor in capitalism. That has there's nothing to do with that. Business is business. You know what I mean? That's how I look at it. I don't see it as like I don't know. Am I right or wrong? I mean, do you feel like that statement is true?
I
Capitalism
think.
means you're trying to earn money and through doing work through businesses. It's like the process of 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 building a community and making money by having people work and earn it and so on and so forth. But the people on the top always are going to try to get more than the people. I mean, the people on the bottom want to make more too, but if it's not their business, they're not necessarily going to see the same money that the people on the top are going to be. So I don't see it like if there's not a balance in there, or if there's not a way for them to contribute back to the community, it's hard for me to say so. I mean, it also depends on like taxes as well. Like, how is the taxes gonna, because if you got a capitalistic country or just lifestyle or whatever it is that he or she is trying to say, um, that money's got to be reinvested into the community somehow. If the taxes aren't taking that, or if they're not asking for enough taxes, how does that, you know what I mean? People are gonna, fall through the cracks. That's just how I see it. So I don't think you have to have some sort of balance somewhere. But go ahead.
So I think some of it is the effect that they are trying to say that capitalism itself is. I can't speak for them, but capitalism itself is out of control itself here.
Mm-hmm.
So in a way, you're talking about the capitalism we're experiencing here, not just pure capitalism. Pure capitalism, I obviously don't believe can work. I don't even believe pure socialism can
Mm-hmm.
work. Um, I
People have
think
to make
that
money.
unfortunately
Yeah, there's somebody
you
has
have
to make
to at
money,
least
and
create a
this has to be
productive.
another. Yeah. I'm sorry. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
but I also believe no. But I also don't believe that we should live in a system that believes that productivity is your main source of value. That is also what capitalism ends up doing.
Yep, yep. How do you feel, Teresa?
Yeah, I'm pretty much in the same boat as I don't really think it'll work either. I mean, it's something that we've done for so long, and it's hard to get to out of that um, because because of how it's already set up. But we do have to have somewhere of a balance because these social programs that we do have really benefit a lot of people, and then it's like, but you do want to try to let people actually try to make more money and get out of their class. But I was reading something that said if you're born into poverty, you only have like a 3% chance to actually take yourself out of poverty. If you're born into it, that's where you're going to stay. That's your whole life. Even in our society that we live in, we don't have the avenues for people to try to get out of poverty.
People want to take shortcuts when they're in poverty. They go sell drugs. They start robbing things, and because they have no other choice, like I mean, they have a choice. They could either choose to stay in poverty, or they could try to do something about it. And if nobody gives them the option, like right now, a lot of people are seriously suffering because of COVID, because it's throwing people that weren't in poverty into poverty because of the fact that they're not making any income, and in order for them to go to work, they got to risk their lives, or certain work opportunities aren't there anymore that they're qualified for. And automation is a huge thing that affects things. Like there's a lot of reasons why people aren't making money now. There are not a lot of reasons why people are surviving.
Yeah, I think that statement of we're all just one paycheck away from, being homeless really came to light for a lot of people, and it really shone that light on a lot of people. Like, yeah, I'm almost there, or I am there. There are some people are living in their cars. They had an article the other day I was looking at. Somebody had started living in a what is it? The container places, the storage units. started living in a storage unit. That is not made for habitation, and people shouldn't have to feel that they're at that point of desperateness to leave their apartments and try to live in a storage unit. They're refrigerated. Oh, you're freezing. You're not living somewhere that you would want to be living.
I feel I'm not even like as an individual, like I could see like the possibility of people pulling themselves more likely out of poverty. I mean, I'm not saying it's guaranteed, but I don't even care about that aspect. I care more about the aspect of what about the families that are in poverty with children that can't do anything, or with elderly, or you know what I mean, like elderly or children or whatever it is. Like at the end of the day, that's where the problem really is. It's like, if I'm a young 20-year-old person that could live in his car for a while in order for me to find my way back to, normalcy, that's one thing, and it's still bad. Don't get me wrong. I'm not belittling any of that. But it's like, what do you do in a situation where you're in a household with like five people and majority of them can't work, or something else is going on with them that doesn't allow them like their age or something like that, or they're still young enough and they need to be going to school, and you're screwing up. It's not right. The whole system is screwed up. But
Just want to say thank you, Steven. I just want to say it right. Yeah, Stephen Smith for following. That was nice of you. Thank you very much.
thank you.
And thank you for the question. And yes, I think we're all actually here in agreement that capitalism will not end poverty. I think we may be a little bit in a disagreement about how much capitalism can be effective. I don't even know if we're even in disagreement. I think that we are in different places about capitalism right now. And I think that, for me, I'm dealing with, oh my God, my business disappeared because a pandemic happened. I'm getting to see that even knowing other skill sets isn't enough sometimes. Like all the connections that you have, all the space that you have, what works in this kind of environment, that is actually more of the competitive part of working right now. And I'm not sure if the competition should be what we focus on, but in a way you kind of have to in this kind of society, in this kind of deep capitalism that we have right now here.
If you listen to an entrepreneur right now, they would say most of the money where people become rich and do all this other stuff happens when economies are in the verge of collapse, which is kind of a crazy concept. And I could see how that could work in the benefit for some people. But what about everybody else? That's kind of like a selfish way to look at things. Like, hey, there's opportunities. Like you might lose your job, but then there's other opportunities. Like if you have the capabilities of doing this, now's the time for you to get up and do that. You know what I mean? And it's a crazy thought, but and like in a way I agree with it to an extent for certain people that are able to adapt. But how many people could really adapt? You know what I mean? That's at the end of the day. Some people don't have their grasp. Some people right now are suicidal because of what's going on. They're not even thinking about adapting. They're like, what the hell do I do? I have no idea where to go. I don't know who to talk to. You know what I mean? Like, there's people that didn't know. And Biden said that's the one thing that Biden said in one of his speeches recently, which I give him, a little bit of props for, is that a lot of people didn't even know where to get the money that they needed through the government. You know what I mean? Like he says with
That's
this
true.
stimulus thing that he's going to go out and try to make it so it's more accessible and more easy for people to find ways of finding it, because people are struggling, man, and like I don't know where to go. I don't know who to ask. I don't want to look like I'm gonna be doing something fraudulent, or because there's people that have been fraudulent, or they thought that they can go a certain path, and then later on they ended up getting lawsuits and criminal charges for handling things the wrong way.
Well, people are desperate too.
Yep.
People are becoming, they're making themselves their own business so that they can apply for these small business loans that have real low interest rates and stuff like that, just so that they can survive. They can take out something. Some of these loan forgiveness programs, stuff like that. They're just doing that just so that they can try to survive one more, month in their house or something like that. People are really desperate. The soup kitchen lines, they're getting longer every day. These food distribution places are getting more people that they're seeing every single day. People are struggling. Um, we've been, thankfully, we haven't gotten that bad, but it's like, who knows? We don't know at the same time how long it's going to be before we might have to partake in stuff like that. It's bad, and we're looking for our government to help us, and they're not there. And hopefully with this new administration coming in, it does. We do get something out of it, so that way it actually is helping these people that do need this lifeline the most. I mean, you have kids that went to school for industries and their industries are gone. It's true, and now they're struggling with student debt and everything like that. It's one thing that I like about Joe Biden, that he's starting to talk about, forgiving student loan debt and everything like that. Like, can you imagine going to school for all those years and then now you don't have a job that you were studying for? That job is completely gone because of this COVID and everything like that. They have to try to help the people. That's really where, if they want to stay in their seats, these politicians, they need to help us.
And we need community. We need to be doing a lot more community-driven stuff. People need, I'm going to keep saying that in every show if I have to. People need to get off their asses and help each other. Right now, a lot of people have no clue what to do with themselves or whatever. They don't. Their family members are struggling. There's elderly struggling. There's a lady in my building. I think I've explained this to you before. Personally, I don't know if I told you this on the show or whatever. There was an elderly lady that got locked. I was at my mother's house. She got locked out of her house, and she was knocking on doors on the floor. Like, there's about 10 apartments on the floor. She's knocking on the doors on the floor, trying to find somebody to help her get in her keys didn't seem to work. She has one of those multi-lock keys, like the ones that, they're kind of funky looking. And like, if you don't really know how to use them, they're a little tricky, but they're like regular keys in general. But she has a mild case of dementia or whatever. So I walked down the hallway to go help her. And, her neighbor right across from her, like literally perpendicular or whatever on the other side, or parallel or whatever. Perpendicular would be the other way. But parallel to her thing on the other side of the hallway, she saw me over there and was like, "What are you doing there?" And I'm like, "I'm helping her get into her house." Like, I guess she didn't recognize me because I have my mask on and everything else. But then she's like, "Oh, she does this all the time," and blah, 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 blah. And like, she, instead of seeming like she was concerned, she seemed mad. And then moments later, I hear boom, 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 like down the hallway. And it's the police going to her apartment or whatever, trying to see what's going on, because they had a report that some lady was going around, or somebody was going around knocking on doors and acting a fool, supposedly. And in reality, it was a little old lady with dementia. Come to find out, her husband was in the hospital, right? So he used to take care of her, but he had gotten sick. And today I found out from my mother that he actually passed away, which is sad. So now this woman is, the police took her that day away. And in a way, she kind of needed the help. But you would think that they would have, instead of bringing some strangers and police, initially there were 2 cops. And then another, 4 cops came up with a stretcher and they took her away. So, I mean, she needed the help. But these people supposedly had contacts that they could have went through the guard. They could have went through the family members, the building or whatever, the guard in the building or the superintendent in the building. They could have went through that approach. A lot of people had contact, information for her family members. So my whole thing is, a lot of people take the lazy route. Hold on a second.
We also live in a liability.
Just go inside. I'll bring it in. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
We live in a liability society. So that guard is told not to interfere with that situation. This is a possibly, I don't want to be generational, but there might be a generational issue there where you don't have the kind of latitude for that kind of person. That person is seen as they should be in a house, in a housing facility of some sort, to be kept in a situation where they can be looked after all the time. A lot of people feel that way, and they get angry. They, instead of dealing with that as in what can I do to kind of help this situation, they get into more of a, I'm angry about this situation.
These people, I'm sorry, I agree with you to an extent. These people were almost her age that were complaining. So I'm thinking to myself, would they want to be have their door knocked on by the police, like like it sounded like they were gonna break the door down the way they were banging on it. I mean, they might not have, but it sounded like boom, 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 like something like they were about to raid the apartment, So, because they had no clue what was going on, and I get it to an extent, but at the same time, I'm like,
I mean, you gotta
if
think
that was
about
my
it.
mother and I found out my family member, her neighbors had called the police the way they did, you want to call like the proper people, like medical people or something like that, fine. But the police, man, like my mom went to the church uptown on St. John the Divine, and this woman that used to go there, she was relatively friends with, but she had like mental issues or whatever it was. I'm sure you heard about that incident of that woman that they raided her house and they shot her. Like the police like said something. They were erratic. The woman was erratic, and they ended up killing her in her apartment. This happened like what, over a year ago, right? You remember that
Nope.
situation? Oh, she
I
doesn't
don't
remember.
remember.
Well, supposedly this
I don't
woman
even
was a
look
sweet
over there.
lady, but she had
No.
mental issues. I'm not cool with people sending police. Like this is the whole thing about the defund the police thing or whatever it is. You send the right people for the right situation, and I think the situation called for, if they needed to and that was the last resort, fine, bring the police. But supposedly these people had the phone number of the children. Why didn't you call the children? I put the woman back into her apartment. She was safe in her apartment. It's not like she was roaming the streets acting crazy. She was in her apartment, and then they came to her apartment and yanked her out of her apartment. So I have a problem with that. It's one thing if she's in the street, stripping herself naked, acting crazy, or doing whatever it was, but she wasn't. She looked scared, and
I'm not
then
trying
she
to
got more
make
scared at the end of the day.
I'm not trying to make excuses for anything or anything like that, but people right now are very tense and very scared in general when it comes to COVID, and that changes. It's changed a lot of people's relationships with their neighbors and their friends and everything. They're not as willing to try to help as they used to, because they're scared. People are scared. They're scared of catching COVID. They're scared of infecting their family, which will make people not want to step out of their own comfort, their own security to help somebody else. It's easier to make a phone call or something like that. These people, it seems like they knew what was going on, but they called the police and then claimed it was somebody roaming around in the halls. But it seemed like everybody on that floor knew what was going on, which is the only thing I think is messed up. Because if you're concerned over her well-being, then you should have called, for an ambulance or somebody to come and do a wellness check for this person instead of the police, and instead of saying it was somebody roaming the halls, because then that automatically puts them on alert. And that way they could have had an ambulance right there with them when they came, instead of having them come and think, oh, we've just got an intruder running around in the halls of some apartment building.
And I have a lot of sympathy about this. You have to understand as well, I have mental health issues, and I have no issue talking about that really, but one of the things about wellness check is that oftentimes in many areas, depending on what kind of density area it is, that involves the police as well, or being sent to a facility which could be one of the worst mental health facilities in the area because of where you are. So when I had my wellness check, I had both the paramedics and the police to deal with. So I didn't have a choice whether what environment I had to deal with. In that situation, it was basically dealing with the police and then dealing with the paramedics. And my health wasn't necessarily the main issue there. It had to do with what they felt was the security of um, mm, I, their case, basically the case,
Of
whatever they
course.
are sent out to do.
Of course,
So
which cuts us back to friggin' defunding the police, because they really shouldn't be the first responder to something like that. They really shouldn't be the first ones that are called there. You really should have been able to at least deal with the paramedics or deal with somebody else that specializes in that. We should have people that we have that are specialized in mental health, and they actually can come and talk down someone who might be having a mental break, or if there's a person with autism that's having an episode, they should be able to get, to help them without having the police shoot them in the middle of the street. That those are things that need to happen with the whole defunding the police, that people aren't understanding. All they're hearing is defunding police, like we're trying to get rid of them. That's not what it is. That was a whole poor wording, I think, when it comes to defunding the police. I think we really need to get around restructuring the police.
Well, let me say something real quick. This is the problem that I have about just the whole environment. Like, they're willing, and back to capitalism a little bit, they're willing to pay for the best of the best and do the right thing for the people with the money. And, if it brings them money, they'll do whatever they want to do with that money and make it right. But when it comes to people and social services or whatever it is, things that'll help people, they don't allocate the money where it's supposed to go. And like when something really needs to be adjusted or fixed, oh, that's too expensive. No. Healthcare, no. This, no. Police, like, if it's not something that they feel is in their grand scheme of like how things should be, the money's not worth it in social programs. But when it comes to, hey, this guy knows how to do some awesome coding or doing whatever else it is, and they know that they can make their business millions or trillions or billions or whatever. I wouldn't say trillions because people, I guess if you're Apple, trillions maybe. But they'll do whatever. They'll spend that money quick. They'll spend that money in a heartbeat. But it's like you would think if society was better, like I said before in a couple of episodes back, if they really cared about people, the money that they invested in the companies wouldn't necessarily just be into automation. It would be into also the working conditions, how people's livelihoods, allowing them to take breaks and relax and do whatever it is that they have to do. They have a normal life while they're working so that they can live a better life and provide better work environment and better, just in general work environment. Like at the end of the day, that's what it is. You're a happier worker. You do a more efficient job working. They say you don't have to work 5 days a week. You can work 4 days a week and still be as effective if the person's in the right mind state. You know what I mean? But, they don't care. They just want to work people to death. They want to make their money. They don't care if the conditions are horrible. If a person lose an arm or eye or whatever at their job, unless it's going to, if they do, then, they got the contingencies for that. They'll have their lawyers and whatever else to make sure that, or their insurances, that'll cover that. But when it comes to the individuals themselves, they don't care if people are covered or safe or if they're being handled correctly, in the real world aside from work. You know what I mean? And I have a huge problem with that. We live in that's the problem with a capitalism in a country or whatever. At the end of the day, their focus is the money and where the money is going and what's going on with the money. The money. But they don't care if people are dying because of it. Going to mines or whatever, digging up all sorts of toxic things or destroying the environment, and it's not important to them. And that's why Trump did all that deregulation and all that other stuff. He doesn't care. They're about their money.